We going live, got some errors popping up. Yeah, forget you. Hey everybody, am I living? Somebody type in those magic words I want to hear. Sound good. Alan Dugan, man, you are just the best. All right, thank you guys. Alice is here, good Lord. All right guys, keep it clean. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Mike Meyers Ask Mike Anything live stream. The goal of this live stream is to provide those of us who are isolated by the coronavirus an opportunity to continue our studies primarily on the CompTIA IT Fundamentals A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus, although we can certainly go beyond that on an as-needed basis. So because this is an Ask Me Anything, the goal here is that you ask me questions and I answer them for you. The best way to ask me questions is simply to type them into the live chat, and either me or my attractive assistant, Scott Jernigan, will find those and we will answer them for you. However, if you're the shy type, and there's nothing wrong with being the shy type, or if you think your question's a bit complicated, the other thing you are welcome to do is to contact me via email. So if you think you got a more complicated question, just go ahead and send me an email. My email is michaelm@totalsem.com. If you're a gamer, I am Senor Pepe on Steam. And when in doubt, look up Desweds and you'll know all there is to know about me, Mike Meyers. Great guy. All right, so anyway, what do we got in here? We always start with a small grip. I always feel like I should just talk about something silly for a while. Okay, we will. All right, so I guess you're all very curious about my fold phone. Well, it's dead. It's really dead. I'm going to take it into the shop here, but for the time being, I am bringing my old Pixel 3 back online. Nothing wrong. Actually, it's a really great phone. It's a very good phone. It's not 5G, but other than that, it's a great phone. Oh, it doesn't fold. All right. Will Mike continue to keep foldable phones? Well, let's see what the repair cost is this. This phone's only about 9 months old, and you know what Samsung's going to do. They're going to do, well, you dropped it. So, of course, that then requires me, the moment somebody from Samsung says, did you drop it? I'm going to look at them right in the eye and go, nope. I don't want to be a liar, but gosh, you know, it's like you get pulled over by the cop and goes, you been drinking? I don't care if I'm holding a fifth of whiskey in both hands. I'm like, nope. Yeah, so, and that has served me well. All right, so anyway, so today we started on PowerShell last week. We got a good start introduction last Wednesday on PowerShell. On Monday, we started getting into variables. And then based on some questions I got, I thought it would be really interesting to go ahead and set up a Windows, I think I'm using Server 2019. I'm not sure which one I downloaded. We're going to set up a virtual network, which would consist of a Windows Active Directory server, and I'm going to set up one client in there. And the reason I want to do that is because one of the big people who love to use PowerShell are Windows administrators, and understandably so. The commandlets alone for PowerShell are incredibly powerful and are wonderful tools. The other thing I want to show you guys is that a lot of the scripts that are pre-made that you can download from Microsoft and such usually address, if they're not addressing some kind of log event filtering thing, they're usually talking about some mundane, boring administrative task in Active Directory domains. So I thought we'd kill two birds in one, but that does mean we have a little bit of a sidebar in that we're going to continue to work on building up our Active Directory machines today. But even before that, we had some questions on layer 4 transport layer in the OSI versus fragmentation and MTUs. So we're going to talk about that even before that. Bottom line is, I don't think we're going to get to any more PowerShell today. We're going to be concentrating on answering questions and setup. So I do need to warn you guys. Normally I would say something like this. These talks go until 4 o'clock my time, or until the questions run out, but I don't think that's going to happen today. We got a lot of configuration to do, and there's going to be certain parts during the server setup where it's going to get slow, And I'm just going to go back to you guys, and we'll get some questions then. So we'll make that work out. Oh, Scott Jernigan, you're making jokes about my Pixel 3? Yeah, and Scott Jernigan's going to go buy himself a brand new iPhone 12, and then he's going to go buy himself a charger because it doesn't come with it. Oh, good luck getting the earbuds too. But hey, I like Apple. I just, people like, Apple is good, Android is bad. I don't know. Let's not get into that. All right, so anyway, that's basically the game. Let's see. Gino, man, long time no see, brother. Where you been? All right, let's see. Let me just scroll up to the top. I have not looked at anything yet. See if we can knock out a couple of questions real quick. Shakespeare, okay. Tollwood, Allen, Diggin, elbows here. Scott Jernigan's chatty. Benjamin Hogg, hi there. Spent my whole day today, this is just before 2 o'clock, on troubleshooting my misbehaving PC after a fuse blew up. A fuse blew up in your PC, or a fuse blew up on your household circuit? I'll assume the other. And I think you mean a breaker, right? Oh my God, Benjamin, are you telling me there was a fuse? There are fuses in power supplies, but damn. It turned out to be, oh, this has already got fixed. It turned out to be a huge coincidence, and all I had to do was updating the NVIDIA drivers. Okay. However, that leads me to a question. The OS needs video drivers to talk to the GPU, but how does the UEFI talk to the GPU before I installed an OS? Very simply, it talks to it at a very simple level. So the UEFI knows how to speak basic graphics, and this basic graphics is a standard interface that you can get on any actually on any BIOS. Back in the old days, they could only do text, but today they have enough built-in drivers into the BIOS to be able to do simple stuff. Now, I know it's interesting. To me, simple stuff means a text, command line interface, which is what BIOSes used to look like. And now today, most of them are quasi-graphical. They have mouse support. It's just UEFI built these basic things into it. So that's why. Now, don't ask UEFI to handle bump mapping or anti-aliasing or lens flare or any of that stuff, right? Because that's where NVIDIA is really, the GPU is going to kick in. I also read the term daisy chain motherboard. Want to know what that is? I have no clue. Scott, you know what a daisy chain motherboard? How to daisy chain multiple monitors, and that's not going to be memory train. All right, Benjamin, nothing instantly popped up on my Google search about daisy chaining motherboards, so I'm going to let you see if that has to do. Wanted to ask what it is, don't know yet, what it has to do with a slower RAM speed when more sticks are used. I'm going to scroll down to the other question, see if anybody else is jumping on that one. Scott Jernigan is typing to me furiously. I'm going to be serious if he knows what that's all about. Okay. Benjamin, congratulations. You have stumped both Mike Meyers and Scott Jernigan. I have a feeling this probably, you might be talking about shared memory on systems. That could be it. I've heard that term daisy chain. I've heard of daisy chaining monitors, but that's rare and weird and usually requires a strange USB connection and special monitors. Give me more, man. Give me more, Benjamin. Sorry I can't help you with that. Okay, here we are. Dr. Quinn is here, straight at 2 o'clock. Alice is here. Hi, Alice. Patricia Grace, Connor, Tara, and Nick Sparky. Mike, I've trouble with both. Okay, Nick Sparky, I've had trouble with both the 2019 and 2016 versions of Microsoft version on VirtualBox? Nick, I haven't. Or if I did have problems, it was stupid stuff I did. And we were literally, if you want to review Monday's session where we actually started the installation, talked about how to set up the actual virtual machine itself, memory use and stuff like that, you might want to watch that. We've already started the installation. And Nick, if you have a particular issue that you ran into in that process, remember, you can just bring it in here as a question via the live chat, or if you want to, send me an email at michaelm@totalsem.com. Speaking of, just because you guys are nice enough to show up here today, we have specials. I don't even know what the specials are today. I know it's 50% off our A+, Net Plus, and Security Plus practice questions and simulations, 50% off. Well, I'm already the cheapest guy out there when it comes to practice questions, and now we're virtually giving them away at 50% off. Our prices are insane. So anyway, Scott Jernigan will be kind enough to put that up on the screen and let you guys take advantage of it. Just go to www.totalsem.com, head over to our vendor merchant area, buy all those practice questions you want, and then at checkout, you type in whatever Scott Jernigan's about to type onto the screen. Columbus. For last Monday being Columbus Day. There you go. Alice Potsy, we still celebrating Columbus over here a little bit. All right. Patricia Grace, I waited too long. You waited too long. It's all right, because Patricia, we're going to record everything we're doing today. And God, I hope we get done today. We're going to try to get done today. And just follow the bouncy mic as you once everything's downloaded and ready to go for you. Gino, phone equals cool, t-shirt equals, I literally, this whole thing, yeah. Scott Jernigan, EGAD's a Pixel 3, first world problems. Truly is, Scott. Can't argue with that one. I have nothing to drink. Jack, Kitty, go get me a drink. Man, if I could train a cat to go pull a glass of Gatorade out of the fridge, that'd be a great thing to do, wouldn't it? Good thing Mike elbow. Good thing Mike didn't admit to anything live with 30 people watching. Just looking for questions. There's Brendan S. Just snuck in a little late. Where have you been, young man? Patricia Grace, I saw the Discord link. Oh, you guys actually started that stuff? Scott Jernigan, will you do me a favor? And if they actually have a Discord channel that's starting up that we've actually said is out there, please let me know about it. And I may drop in. We'll see whoever's in charge of it and how they handle it. I can drop in and say hello. Mark Wheeler, I get Apple products, but not including charger or ear pods makes literally no sense. Why don't you charge, what was it, $1,000 or $100 for a stand or whatever that was? Andre, I've started Net Plus regarding TCP versus UDP, which we're going to be tickling into a little bit today. What do you mean by UDP is connectionless? Andre, good question. UDP being connectionless simply means a UDP datagram? I'm forgetting my terminologies, which is funny because we're going to be talking about that. Scott, look up PDUs for me, and it's TCP datagram and UDP. Yeah, I can't remember. Doesn't matter. When I send out a UDP, it's going to be, there's no SYN-ACK. There is no handshake with UDP. It just sends it, and it's counting on something to be on the other end to make sure that it's hearing it. So it's connectionless in that it just sends whatever it's sending and assumes that the receiving party is there with a baseball mitt ready to catch it. TCP is connection-oriented, which means that it goes through a handshake. Basically, it's SYN-ACK. And during this handshake, it's like, hello, I'm here. Oh, hello, what are you going to do? Okay, start sending. Got the difference? Okay. So that's all that means. Now you would think to yourself, you go, well, Mike, is UDP faster? Yes, it is faster. Why don't we use more UDP? Because most people need connections. Like if I got a web server and I'm going to be running HTTPS, that is connection oriented. Not only do I have to negotiate for the cyber suite, but I have to, make sure the guy's not sending me bad data, stuff like that. So you make that connection. Something like 98% of all the data sent over the internet is TCP. UDP actually shows up. Oh, it can certainly show up on the internet, but it can also show up a lot of times in local area networks. Can you guys hear all those dogs barking outside? Looking for questions. Dr. Quinn, 2:13 p.m. My cat is well trained. You want to borrow her? Look at this. Oh, come here, lump. Okay, I'm just cat sitting, all right? This is not my cat. And Jack is the biggest lump. Look at this cat. You can pick him up. You can throw him on your belly. Say hi to the people. He's just a big lump. And he's just been fed, so he's going to want for nothing now for a while. But it's kind of cool. He likes hanging out with me. So I'm very glad to have this guest cat. Nick Sparky, my cat only listens to his stomach. Yeah, your cat and Jack should get along fine. Patricia Grace, 2:14 p.m. Mike, the place I've been volunteering hired me part-time. Mazel tov. Just found out before coming here. Part-time is perfect for me right now, too. Patricia Grace, big round of applause to you, Chicolita. Muy bueno. Alice Potsy, a glass of Gatorade. Alice, I only drink non-alcoholic beverages on screen. Right? Alice, I would love to speak to you in Italian, but my Italian is so horrible that the last time I tried to speak Italian, I was in Berlin at an Italian restaurant, and the guy's like, shut up. Yeah, so that was bad. Man, you take one semester of Italian, you think you're a genius, right? Especially when I start drinking a good Amarone. Okay, what do we got here question-wise? Yeah, Elbow, you got Tolowitz started. You sure did. Looking for questions. LOL, my whole new gaming PC costs less than the Mac Pro stand. Nick Sparky, user datagram protocol and transmission control protocol? Yeah, I think so. Hey, Nick, no one's ever going to test you on acronyms and what they mean. Understand what they do and how they work, but no one's ever going to test. You'll never see an A+ question that says, what does UDP stand for? That drives people nuts, because I'm terrible at memorizing acronyms. It drives poor Scott Jernigan bonkers, because I was like, what does that stand for? He's like, you only been teaching this 25 years, fat man. And I was like, I can't remember all these acronyms. I can make DHCP sit up and dance, but Dynamic Host Control Protocol? There you go, that's proof. But never panic about acronyms. That is so cool, Patricia. I'm so glad to hear that. Part-time work, Ben. Benjamin, apparently daisy chain is a RAM topology. Benjamin, just for you, I'm going to check this out. Daisy chain RAM topology. I'm going to check it out. Come next Monday, we'll have a little quick discussion on it, because I know we'll be back in PowerShell by next Monday. Taron, you like my hat? I got a new hat back there. Does anybody recognize my new hat? I'll give you a clue. Bannockburn. Yeah, I got a Scottish hat. Where is it? Right there. Cool hat. Ooh, that's the Discord link, huh, Scott? All right. I'm going to sneak in on this Discord thing that people are starting to set up, so I'm going to check it out. Oh, here it comes. Man, this scroller's torturing me. All right. Don't see any more critical questions here, but what I want to do, hold on, Turin. Is Windows Firewall enough, or should we install a dedicated third-party firewall? Windows Firewall is fantastic. It is very granular and powerful. It rarely gives false positives. It's been known to give a few false negatives to me from time to time, especially when I'm using software of a questionable nature. You know, don't freak out, people. I mean, it will yell out on, I'm trying to think what are some of the famous ones. TCP view, it will yell about, and you just put in an exception. It works beautifully. I have not used any other host-based firewall on a Windows system for 5 years other than the built-in firewall. Take that as it may. I'm looking for questions. No bullies. Hey, no. I just bought your McGraw-Hill Net Plus and the Udemy course. If you was starting over today, what would you study first, and what would Scott have? And would Scott have a different answer? Well, I don't know. I mean, Scott and I are kind of like an old married couple when it comes to understanding IT training and what people need to do to pass certification. I'm a reader. I'm a reader and I'm a kinesthetic. I'm the type of person who wants to read, and then I want to start grabbing a screwdriver and playing with stuff. So that's usually my first line of defense. Most people these days are visuals and really, really like watching videos. I know visual kinesthetics who will be watching my videos and then working at the same time. I like that idea if you're on your own where you can work and then watch or read and then do it yourself. I've always felt that that was a good combination. Okay, how are we doing? It's 2:23. I definitely want to start some of the stuff by 2:30 at the latest. Benjamin, I'm going to send you my sources via email. Thank you, Benjamin. I learn new stuff every day, man. Anybody who thinks they know everything about even PCs gets quickly proven to be an idiot rather quickly in this industry. So I'm always loving new information. Andre went dumpster diving. See, Andre, this is where me being an American is such a thing, because you know I've been to Europe 7 times, mainly London, Berlin, Munich, Paris, and it's always so nice and clean. You know, I mean, Europe, or at least I guess because I stick to the touristy areas. I don't know. So the idea of somebody in the EU dumpster diving, it's kind of like, okay. Mike, you got an Intel socket 775 DDR with 2 gigs of RAM. You might be able to get Linux running on there. Connor, what is the best way to get started learning more about cloud computing and virtual networks and routers? Is Azure the best option? My problem with cloud is that everything I've learned is through Amazon, and I have ignored other resources on that. I know that Microsoft is really moving its certifications to be more cloud-based. It's the same jobs, but instead of having a server, you know, local, you do it up off-premise. It's the same game. I know that Amazon has some really nice tutorial stuff that they do for free. It's my understanding that Azure also has that capability, but I just haven't investigated enough. So, I'm an AWS guy. What can I say? S3 for me. Elbow, Mike, what is your base instinct when you look at a PC with RGB in it? Mine is to immediately ignore all the lights and try to see what the hardware is. Just curious. I don't know. I like pretty. Before RGB became a thing, I used to use a lot of rope light, EL wire. It was just fun. It's like back in the old days when you would put a clear distributor cap in your automobile just because you could watch the sparks fly. You know. I do appreciate a well-configured RGB, especially with the tools and toys you have out there today. You can really make some beautiful stuff. But I'm with you. I'm going to look at the RGB and go, oh, that's pretty, and then what kind of CPU do you have? But I like pretty. Nick Sparky, you set up your first gaming server, 7 days to die. Good man. Okay, guys, I'll tell you what. I see there's a few more questions coming in. I promise I'm not going to, well, I'm not going to promise that I won't miss a question. Here's the rules. If you have a question and I'm not answering it on a timely basis, just type it in again, okay? And if I miss it again, then send a message to Scott Jernigan over the live chat and say, why won't Mike answer my questions? Follow up with an email. Guys, I'm only one man, you know? And I miss stuff. And it's just not a big deal. Squeaky wheel gets the grease around here. Okay. I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and get started because I don't remember who actually initially asked this question, but I do know that my buddy Dr. Quinn was interested in hearing about this. And we had a question on Monday where a person was confusing the idea behind IP fragmentation versus OSI transport layer. And I will say this, those are two situations where things get broken up into more things and have to be reassembled back. That's true, but they work at very different levels and very different areas. So what I thought might be fun is let's go ahead and take a few minutes, this isn't a long presentation, and talk about what is IP fragmentation versus OSI transport layer 4. Okay? Let's go ahead and do this. Boy, I hope this is set up. You guys have no idea. This is like Apollo 13 every Monday and Wednesday around here. All right. Fingers crossed. Okay, here we go. All right, so what I want to start off by doing is I want to show you an Ethernet frame. You guys ready? Here it goes. There you go. That's it. There it goes. Okay. So this is an Ethernet frame. Now, what you're seeing here is a bunch of ones and zeros, right? Now, when data is traveling down, let's just keep a copper wire as an example right now, okay? Which is, most Ethernet still runs on copper. You either have a voltage or you don't have a voltage, okay? And I find it easier when I'm talking about data being transmitted between systems to, instead of just saying voltage on, voltage off, voltage off, voltage off, voltage off, voltage on, you know, get what I'm saying? To just say ones and zeros. One indicating there's voltage on the wire, and zero means there isn't any voltage on the wire. And if you want to get more detailed into how does Ethernet actually do that, I can do that for you, but Scott Jernigan will fall asleep on us, and I don't want that to happen. So ones and zeros just means a stream of data, okay? If you were to watch this happening, you would watch a wire going, you know, that's pretty much all there is to it. Let's dive back in. All right, so what I want to do is let's take a look at that big chunk of data I've got. Oh, wait a minute. Guys, this thing's huge, okay? I can't get it all on the screen so you can see it. So if you don't mind, I'd like to shrink it down. Is that okay? So let me just shrink this down. Oh, okay, now we got another problem. Now the problem is it's shrunk down, but the text is so tiny none of us can read it. And I need to warn you guys, that isn't what an actual Ethernet frame would look like. This is about 1/20th of an Ethernet frame. So if I wanted to show an entire legitimate Ethernet frame on your screen right now, I don't even know if you'd be able to see the line because I'd have to shrink the text down so much. So to get around that problem, we do some clever things. Ready? First of all, what we do is, understand that different parts of these ones and zeros have different jobs. So some of these bits at the beginning are the MAC address to. Some of these bits right after that are the MAC address from. There's some boring goo in here. then the actual payload, whatever, it's usually an IP packet, and then some kind of frame check sequence. But we need to make this so it's a little bit easier to look at. So what we do is we use boxes, okay? So instead of drawing out all the ones and zeros, the chunk of data that's important for, say, the MAC2 or the payload, we just represent as different boxes. And when we put it all together, it looks something like this, all right? So I stole this directly from Wikipedia, folks. So this is an actual Ethernet frame. So we've got the preamble, which is like the beginning part that wakes up the receiving card. We've got the destination MAC address, the source MAC address, ether type, boring. Here's the payload, and then the frame check sequence. Okay. Is everybody cool with the fact that I'm using boxes to represent strings of ones and zeros? Are we okay with that? All right, because if we're okay with that, let's just keep marching on. I'm going to check the text. Nobody's yelling. That's good. Okay, let's get back at this. Okay, so the challenge we have right here is this payload. So the payload, and you'll notice that they've got these little jags in here because the payload, compared to everything else, the payload is huge. So in Ethernet, the maximum payload you can have is 1,500 bytes in a single frame. Okay? So we don't say maximum Ethernet payload. We actually have a term. We call it maximum transmission unit, or MTU. So the biggest chunk of data that you can send in one single Ethernet frame is 1,500 bytes. Okay? Somebody's right now saying, why, Mike? I don't know why, because that's what they planned on it 1 billion years ago, and we live with those results. There's some exceptions, and we can talk about that in a minute. But in general, in an Ethernet world, it's always 1,500 bytes. The problem is, folks, is we don't live in a purely Ethernet world. Sure, in your house, it's probably, if you're wired at all, you probably got some Ethernet. But if you're wireless, you're using 802.11, which is Ethernet-like, but is not Ethernet. Does anybody still have an old DSL modem? I know Dave Rush does. What if somebody's using a DOSIS or a cable modem, but you're using the old PPPoE protocol? What if you're using VPNs? There's all kinds of stuff where the MTU at 1,500 bytes can be a problem, okay? So let's talk about that. So first of all, there's lots of other MTUs out there. So the Ethernet that we use today is actually called Ethernet 2 or Ethernet version 2. Just call it Ethernet because the old Ethernets are old and gone and disappeared. Yeah, they had names like Ethernet 1 and Snap and stuff like that. Don't worry about it. So they had MTUs like 1492, 802.11, good old wireless, has got 2304. DOSIS, or a cable modem, has got 1522. DSL's got 1452. And PPPoE running DOSIS on running PPPoE over DOSIS, you have 1492. So I want you to look at these last two. Notice that those are less than 1,500 bytes, right? Oh yeah, these are all in bytes, sorry. Is that a problem? Think about this for a minute. You've got an Ethernet computer, okay? And it's pushing out 1,500 byte chunks of payload. And you try to run that through a DSL modem. That DSL modem is going to have a problem, isn't it? Okay, and we're going to show you what happens. All right, so here's the problem. So here I've got a computer, I've got an old school DSL modem right here, and then he connects to the internet. So there's my DSL modem. Now, right now, because this computer is a regular Ethernet computer, it's got an RJ45 in the back, its MTU is set by default to 1,500. Yes, you can change it, I'll show you in a second. But the DSL, in fact, I should have drawn this better. Over here, it's got an MTU of 1,500 because there's two network cards in here, right? There's one network card that's on the Ethernet, and then there's another network card that's going out to the SLAM or DSLAM, the DSL DSLAM out at the phone company. So this is a different technology, and it has a different MTU. I should have put 1,500 here and 1492 here. I didn't, but we get the idea. So every time you send out an Ethernet frame out of your machine, it has to go into the DSL modem. That DSL modem, let's say I have a full-blown 1500 byte fully loaded frame. When it gets to the DSL modem, he's going to have to break it into two pieces because he can't do 1500 in one shot. So he's going to do 1492 in one and then 8 plus some padding in the second one. And this, my friends, is fragmentation. Fragmentation, I'm going to say, was a bad thing because we've pretty much licked most of the challenges with it, and the types of technologies that would run into this tend to automatically fix for these kind of things. But fragmentation was a real problem. You can imagine, especially if you were streaming like a video or something, that you would suddenly notice that your bandwidth was terrible, horrible latencies, as everybody's trying to get these things reassembled back together down the line. Not pretty. So it was a big problem. Today, though, it's pretty much fixed. But let's keep going and talk about a little bit more about this. All right. So how do we fix it? Number one, it's pretty well fixed already. Unless you have DSL, PPPoE running on a cable modem, or some vendor telling you you got a problem, don't even bother. In fact, don't even look for this as a problem, in my opinion. If you do need to make changes, there's two places to do it. Number one, you can go to your settings, and on a Windows system, you can go to your settings in your network card properties, or you can go to the CLI. So let's try those. All right. So first of all, I'm going to go to CLI. Do I have PowerShell ready to go? I do. Yay, look at me. So I'm going to type in a command called netsh. Now I need to warn you, hello. I need to warn you that netsh, this is an older command and it's a little bit deprecated. My problem is I'm really, really, really good at netsh, so I'm kind of hooked on it. There are wonderful PowerShell commandlets that replace all this, but I know how to do this. Show sub interfaces. Let's see if this works. Okay, great. Fine. So if you take a look here, sorry guys, Jack is literally putting his hand on me, telling me I need to pet him. So I'm going to try to type one-handed. All right, so if you take a look here, I've got 3 interfaces that are visible on this. Number one, I got my loop back, and you'll see the first column, it says MTU, and the MTU is some ridiculously huge number. Ignore that one. It's the next two that are interesting. I've got my regular Ethernet connection, and then I have my VirtualBox host-only connection. So those are about the only connections. I have other connections on here, but they're all disabled. But you can see they're both set to 1500. Now, if I want to change those, all I got to do is type in net interface IPv4 set sub interfaces and just pick the one I want to mess with. And then I set my MTU. I don't know, make something up here. And then I want to keep it forever even after I reboot. So I'm going to type in store equals persistent. I'm not going to hit enter for one very good reason, and that is literally the connection I'm streaming on is that one. But that is the place where I would typically make changes. On older systems, you can still see it under Device Manager. Let's take a look at that. So I cheated. I've already got Device Manager up. Sorry, guys. And so we're looking here on Device Manager, and I'm going to Network Adapters. That seems a little, I'm going to make that a little bigger. Bear with me a second. I want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing here. And I'm going to go down to, where'd it go? Network Adapters right there. See it? So I'm going to Network Adapters. And then what I'm going to do is pick the device that I want to. So here's my Ethernet connection. I'm going to right-click on it, select property. It's not showing that up again. That is so frustrating. Hang on. Hang on. We know how to deal with this. Darn tootin', I wrote those down. I was paranoid I was going to forget to do those commands. Let's try this again. Here we go. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go to Properties, and this time I'm going to go over to, shoot, where is it? Is it Advanced? Yeah. So I look at Advanced, and what I'm looking for here is MTU setting. And surprisingly, I don't have an MTU setting. It's not a big deal, all right, because I just showed you guys how you could set MTU using the netsh command. But there's another setting here in Device Manager I want to show you guys. Nope, that's not going to work. All right, we're going to do it this way. So I want you to kind of scroll through here. I'll do the scrolling, you do the watching. Here it is, Jumbo Packet. Do you guys see that? And I could set it to either 488 or 9014 bytes. A lot of people see this, and they're like, woo, Mike, what is this cool thing, and what can I do with it? I will show you. It's called a jumbo, and basically what it does is allows you to break the 1500 byte barrier. And you can go up to, well, that was said 9088. It's always, there's one setting that's a little over 9000. So when you're messing with these jumbo frames, you can do this. So I am telling you about jumbo frames, but let me throw you some concerns in there too. So let's go back to my PowerPoint. So number one, you can get Ethernet up to 9,000 bits. I guess it, wow, folks, it's 9,000 bytes, not bits. Yee! I want to fix that right now, but I can't. All right, just move on. It speeds up your bandwidth by about 10 to 30%. It's not as big of a boost as you might think. You absolutely have to have gigabit Ethernet to do this. You can't do it on anything slower than that. It's vendor tricky is the word I like to use. In my experience, if you want to start cranking everything up to use jumbo frames, well, you better get everything from the same vendor. Otherwise, it can be very questionable as to whether this will even work or not. It's only for LANs, so you can't put jumbo frames on the other side of a router or anything like that. Every device, including the switches, must be able to accept jumbo frames and must be configured to the exact same size. And I believe, then finally, and here's the big one, it doesn't always help. When people first learn about jumbo frames, they're like, ooh, I can set my MTU to 9088. Think how big of frames I could do. And it helps, but it can actually hinder situations too. Low bandwidth network, stuff like that, like most home networks, there would be zero benefit to try to even put in jumbo frames. Plus, you probably have a switch that doesn't support it well. But other than that, for usually maybe in some enterprise environments where people are trying to squeak out every little extra bit of bandwidth, jumbo frames are used, and they are popular, but they're not the perfect little panacea everybody makes them out to be. Okay, so are now we comfortable with the idea of fragmentation, okay, and how MTU size adjusts into that, all right? Oh, by the way, how would I fix that with the DSL? Usually what you do is you go into all your individual computers and you set the MTU size down to 1492. You just turn it down so it's DSL size. So every time you send out an Ethernet frame, it's not chopped up into two. That's it. Okay. All right. Let's keep going on. So what I want to do now is let's talk about transport layer. So again, we have assembly and disassembly. Now, if you think about this, let's say I've got a huge Microsoft Word document, okay? And this Word document is, 10 megabytes. Yes, we have documents that big, especially when you throw in graphics. So in order for that to be transported over a LAN, it has to be chopped up. And it has to be chopped up into 1,500 byte chunks, and then it has to be reassembled. There's no fragmentation here, or there's no taking one frame and breaking it into two, folks, okay? We're taking a big file or a big document or a database or whatever it might be, and we're chopping it up into 1500 byte chunks. So I don't like to use the word fragmentation. It's not normally used when we're just talking about the transport layer. But I'm also a little worried when we talk about the transport layer that some of you guys are a little uncomfortable with, sorry, I just saw a question pop. Some of you guys are a little uncomfortable with some terminology. So let's talk about the transport layer. But as we do, I want you guys to understand there's packets in them that are frames. I'll show you what I mean. All right, so we're looking at the transport layer. So here's that Ethernet frame we saw earlier, okay? And the only part I'm interested in right now is that payload, because I want to zoom in on that payload. If we zoom in on that payload, what we're going to be seeing is something called an IP packet. IP packets do not exist by themselves in the world. The only time an IP packet exists by itself is that when your computer's getting ready to put it in an Ethernet frame to send it out, or in a router. But other than that, IP packets do not exist by themselves. So we're going to look at this. Inside the IP packet is a bunch of boring stuff. I should be careful when I use the word boring. Boring means it's boring to the current topic. It's absolutely fascinating if you wanted to take a look at this. But in there, you're going to have the IP address where it's going to, the IP address where it's coming from, and then you're going to have payload again, all right? But wait, there's something in the IP packet. It's not just a payload. So let's zoom in on that guy. And now what we're looking at is the TCP datagram. So the TCP datagram is the payload in this particular example. We have UDP also. And in this particular case, we're going to have stuff like the port where it's going to, the port where it's coming from, and then the sequence number, and then a bunch of extra boring and payload stuff. If this was a web page, there'd be some of the web page in there. You get the idea. But what I'm most interested in is the sequence number. Have you guys ever had like a bunch of boxes delivered to you and they give you 28 boxes? And when you get the boxes, it'll say like box 1 of 28, 2 of 28, 3 of 28, 4 of 28. That's what the sequence number is. So the sequence number is 32 bits? 32 bits. Yeah. So it can handle up to 4 billion packets at a time for one session. And there's even ways to reset if it needs more numbers than that. So the sequence number is just a numbering system that allows the receiving system, well, the sending system takes that Word document, chops off 1500, throws it in an IP packet, which goes in an Ethernet frame and sent out. Takes the next one, put it in. But as it's doing that, it's incrementing the sequence number. So that allows interesting things to happen on the receiving side. Maybe the receiving side didn't get packet 1. So instead of requesting to resend the whole thing, at certain points, the receiving system will say, please resend sequence number 259643. Speeds things up. Don't have to resend everything. So let's make sure we're comfortable with the difference here, all right? When we're talking about IP fragmentation, we're talking about because we have different technologies with different payload sizes, we have to configure the maximum transmission unit basically to fit the smallest link in the chain. This was a big deal for people who ran PPPoE. This was a big deal for people who ran DSL. But even the people who still use those technologies, we now have routers and things that automatically configure that for you. So it's not that big of a problem. On the other side of this, jumbo frames are cool, but really, unless you're in a very specific enterprise type environment where you're usually moving a lot of data, it rarely would make sense. And it's a good way to knock your network down. I always love people put passwords in. If I want to keep people off my computer, I just change the MTU size to something weird. They'll never get in. Well, at least they'll never get on the internet. Isn't that a tricky thing to do? I like that. And whereas transport layer assembly and disassembly within the TCP datagram, and we have the sequencing number that takes care of that for us. So that's it. Only took 20 minutes. Let's see if anybody's got any questions. Looking for questions. Debbie Strauss just showed up. Where have you been, young lady? How to relate this information with the hex dump of the packet. Hold on, I may have missed a question. Scott Jernigan's telling me I missed a question. Daniel Carrillo, little sidebar just while we're here, so I don't want to lose it. I have a new HP that's noisy. Are HPs noisy compared to Dell? No. Nope, not at all. Fans get... Yeah, well, I think you just got a bad fan, man. Fans are easy to replace. Replace the fan. Okay, so coming back to where was... That's my one problem. Okay. Taran Chandra, how to relate this information with the hex dump of a packet. Okay. So you got to remember that we can represent ones and zeros in a lot of different ways. If I wanted to, I could represent ones and zeros using hexadecimal, and I think we covered that this week or last week, I don't remember. So the last thing we want to do is show raw data in binary format. So even the most, let me get this guy going real quick. All right. So let me, I'm pulling something up just for you, Taran. Bear with me just a minute, brother. All right, so what I'm going to do for you, because I like you better than anybody else, is let's go ahead and take a look at Wireshark for a minute. All right? So I'm just bringing up Wireshark. It's not that terribly critical. Let me get this in a way you guys can easily see it. There we go. All right. So stop the capture. It's not important. But what I want to show you, Taram, is even in Wireshark, you can see that it represents every raw binary value in the Ethernet frame in hexadecimal. This is the actual raw hexadecimal. Nobody does it in binary. But you could, Taram, that's the important thing. If we wanted to, we could put another panel in here and do it all in ones and zeros. But boy, that'd be a big panel. So, so this is the hex. And over here is just their best raw representation of what they think that hex means. They're usually just using Unicode text. Okay? So you can do some interesting things if you want here. So I'm going to click on the frame's boring. Let's try again. So here's the Ethernet frame itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the destination. Now look what it's doing here. Do you see it actually, whoops, put it back in. So you can see that it actually, I don't have it all there. Should be showing a little bit more. Actually it is, if you take a look. Oh, that's me doing that. All right. So you can see that's the actual MAC address of the destination itself. And it's just in hex. And again, we could put it in binary if we wanted. But oy vey, would that be a pain. We could do all of our Ethernet frames and IP packets, we could do those in hex. It's just a lot of times easier because we're not terribly interested in the detail in that. That's why we just tend to use the boxes more than anything else. And it's just a matter of convenience and convention and what other people do. But you could. That's the important thing I want to let you know. We could do it in binary. Eric Crenshaw, I use dial-up. Debbie Stouch, you've got mail. Oh, Scott Jernigan beat me to it. All right, it looks like I have once again done such an excellent, excellent description that there are absolutely no questions. Therefore, I will compliment myself and my incredible ability to provide IT instruction. You're welcome. Is the cat running around? Jack, you causing trouble? Loving this cat. Can he be... Yeah, I'm probably going to be watching him for about 5 months. Is Jack Cat 6A? Jack is Cat 1. Looking for questions. Bear with me. Uh-oh. Somebody was being naughty and getting deleted. Oh, Johnny, it might be a sin. Just looking for questions, guys. Thomas Robinson. Hey, Mike. Is there a checksum and error detection in the IP packets? Not the equivalent of a frame control sequence. I'm not aware of error checking at layer 3. I guarantee you in some weird way there's going to be error checking, but it's not going to be what I'd call a common thing. Okay, what do we got here? Rich Reed. Hi, Mike. I have your videos on Udemy, and at the end of the videos, you say that you have that piano tune at the end. I saw your videos in Linked on Learning and noticed it didn't play the music. Why is that? Different customers have different requests, man. I mean, if they wanted me to play Happy Birthday backwards, I'd do it for them. Nick Sparky. So I have a Microsoft Server on my desktop. I'm going to SFTP. I was going to say TFTP is a UDP protocol. The ISO via CyberDuck to my laptop. Okay. Jesus saves. I'm sorry, dude. I am such a southerner. I saw that Jesus saves. Will you describe what a kernel is in an OS? Sure. You're never going to run any questions on this, but we can talk about that. An operating system has a lot of important jobs it has to do. The operating system has to manage memory. It has to handle inputs. It has to act as an interface for storage normally. It has to multitask between the apps. So it's got a lot it has to do. So how do you write that? How do you make that happen? So what you do, and there's different philosophies on this, is that the actual operating system itself is usually surrounded by the kernel, which is actually the part that does all the hard work. In Windows, it's called ntoskrnl.exe. Pretty sure. Whereas in Linux, you have a number of different little programs that work together in what are called microkernels to do the job. So that's pretty much all it means. It's the part of the operating system that is doing the most important work, which is usually going to be memory management and supporting applications. That's the big thing. And did you say the word microkernel, or did I say the word microkernel? I got to be careful here. You just said kernel. So a kernel can be monolithic, where you have one kernel that does a lot of stuff, or you can have microkernels, which are little programs that are working together. And the best description of that is Windows versus Linux is probably the best example of that. Eric Crenshaw, can you explain subnetting to me? No. And I'll tell you why, Eric, because we've already done this. We have, if you have any of the Mike Meyers videos, we certainly cover subnetting there, but we also did subnetting here in the AMA. And I think we did a really, really good job with that. And I strongly invite you to check that out. Looks like Scott's even posted the AMA links for you. Come on up, Jack. Fat cat can't get through the slats in the back of the chair. So that'd be the way to go. However, Eric, I don't want to leave you hanging. I want you watch that stuff, and if you have questions, ask questions. All right? And don't ask me questions like, I don't get it, okay? You need to, everybody has a point in their learning process where you're reading something or you're watching something, and then there is that point where you have a breakdown, okay? There's a point where you went from learning to not learning. And the best way you can take advantage of a resource like me, Eric, is to recognize for yourself where exactly did that breakdown take place. You know, a lot of us will like try to read something and they'll go, well, I'll eventually figure it out, okay? And then you don't. That's okay, because I read that way too, a lot of technical stuff. I'm like, I don't quite get this, but I'll keep going and see if it comes together. You're like, okay, it didn't come together. Now, what you got to do is you got to backtrack through that video or that book or whatever you're using and pick a point, okay? And don't tell me I didn't get nothing. I hate that. You're always getting something, okay? But pick that point. You're probably going to say something like, why are you turning dotted decimal notation into binary to do subnets? Or something like that. Then I've got something to chew on, so I know where your knowledge has left off, and I know where to pick back up, okay? So, Eric, go ahead, man. That might be a complicated one, so send me an email and tell me where tell me where it hurts, man, and we can pick up from there, and I can answer you here online. I'm stuck on subnetting in Chapter 6 of your Net Plus book. I asked yesterday and last week, but still waiting for your response. Okay, well, Eric, first of all, sorry I missed him. That's going to happen. But give me more, man. Read something and tell me where it first starts to hurt, and I'm your boy. Why is somebody even typing in the word, oh, I saw CCNA1, and I thought Debbie was typing in COM1. It's like, whew. Brendan S. What's the difference between using a loopback plug versus just pinging the loopback address alone in a command line? Okay. Depends on the network card. Cheap network cards have internal loopback circuitry. When they receive a loopback command, it doesn't even go out the device. And with those, whether you have a loopback plug or not, it's not going to do you any good. And it's easy to tell if you have one of those NICs. Don't plug anything in, run a loopback, see if it works. If it works, then you have a cheaper network card, which is fine. You know, there's a reason that network cards are free, man. You know, wasn't that long ago where I remember paying $250 for a network card. And now it's built into the motherboard. But when you get better network cards, like the cards you have to snap into a PCIe slot, they will often come with an applet. And this applet will allow you to do legitimate loopbacks where you have to have a loopback plug or you have to be plugged into a switch. And they're just a little bit more robust, a little bit more expensive. All right, it's 3 o'clock. I'm going to have more time to answer more questions, but I would very much like to continue on our process of getting our Active Directory server up and running. So let's go ahead and switch gears, and let me find my virtual machines. That's not it. I've got so much stuff running on here. It's crazy. All right, and what we're going to do is let's go ahead and start off with where we kind of left off with the server right here. You know what? Let's do a little backpedal. Number one, go into your BIOS and turn on virtualization or VT-X or whatever it's called on your system. The chances of you having a computer that does not support virtualization anymore is pretty small. I'm not saying they're not out there, but you want to turn on virtualization. Your CPU has the capability to support a lot more powerful virtualization by turning on VT-X or whatever it's called on your system. And you have to go, before you do anything else, make sure that it's turned on, number one. Number two, download a copy of VirtualBox. There are two major copies of VirtualBox that are out there right now. There's the 6.0 and the 6.1. The 6.1 requires that you have a system that supports virtualization. 6.0 doesn't. 6.0 is going to run a lot slower. It's going to eat a lot more memory, but it'll work even if you, by some chance, you have an older machine. If you have an old copy of VirtualBox and you haven't upgraded to 6.1 and you have virtualization capability on your system, for crying out loud, upgrade. It takes up less memory, it runs faster, slices, dices, makes julienne fries in seconds. So you definitely want 6.1. Shoot, let's just cover it all since we're in here. All right, just to make sure you know where we're at. Whoop, word bind, there we go. Self-directing is hard, come on, man. All right, so let's take a look at the left monitor here. All right, and so the URL for where we go to is virtualbox.org. We're right there, kids. All right. All right. And once you're in there, you can see there's this huge button that says download VirtualBox 6.1. If you want to use an older version, look on the left, there's a download screen, and you can download that. But you don't just download VirtualBox. While you're there, the other thing you want to make sure you get a copy of, is, we'll make sure I'm saying it right, is the extension pack. So when you get VirtualBox, there's always a VirtualBox extension pack that's also free that comes with it. The extension pack does some nice things. It lets you cut and paste from your virtual machine to your host. It allows your mouse to move out of your virtual machine and into your host easily. It handles scaling of resolutions better. So you definitely want that extension pack. So make sure that you always download that as well. And go ahead and install it. Now, once you've got it installed, so once you've got it installed, now you can see I've already got a number of virtual machines running in here. But once you've got it installed, you're going to want to do a couple of things. Number one, you probably want to make an isolated network. So let's just take a look at one of these settings here. All right. So I'm going to pick something that's not running. Most of these configurations have to be done when the virtual machine's turned off. So I'm going to go here onto my virtual machine. I'm going to go into network. Now you'll see I've got a bunch of options here, okay? NAT it's got a built-in NAT where it actually has to act like its own router, and it's going to pass out for almost everybody 192.168.56 addresses. There's nothing wrong with it. If I've got one machine, I'm going to use it. A bridged adapter means that it's going to be just like another machine on your network. So when you do a bridged adapter, let's say my computer's IP address is 172.16.33.5. This guy's just up here. He's going to be 172.15.33. Whatever my DHCP server is on, connects to. So he's a peer on the same network as the host. Internal network means it's just its own little internal network. You can make lots of internal networks and give them different names. This one is not connected to the internet in any way. Host only means just the machine. A generic driver is kind of weird. Generic driver allows you to install all kinds of different network cards. I've not really had much use for this, but I would think that for some people that might have some, if they've got devices or something or looking for a particular network card, you can actually do that there. And you can spoof the MAC address if you want. Not attached means it's like it doesn't even have a network card. But here's the one I want you guys to take a look at. Do you see it says NAT network? So the built-in NAT that comes with VirtualBox, the one that will give you the 192.168.56 address, is fine. But especially once you start doing lots of stuff, you want a NATed network, primarily because you want, if you're going to be installing Active Directory and stuff like this, they phone home to Microsoft, updates, those types of things. So I want to be on the internet, but I don't want to use that 192.168.56, the default virtual address. Primarily because I often use it for other stuff. Got it? So I'm going to make a new NATed network, and this new NATed network is going to be 10.0.2 WAC24. And that way I know it's separate, I know I'm not messing with anybody else, and it's just a cleaner way to work. Look, if you want to do this entire exercise just using the regular NAT network at 192.168.56, it'll work great, okay? But heaven forbid you put something else in there. Windows doesn't like it when you put in a rogue DHCP server or something like that. Anyway, let's get back to this. All right. So I have two networks that I made, and I guess I better show you where to make those, huh? So that's not made on the individual systems. You actually go up to File. This is the manager itself. Go up to File. Network Operations Manager, no. Host Network Manager, no. It's under Preferences, of course. I don't know why they do it this way. They just do. So here you can see I've made two networks. I can whip up another one. Call it Fred. And I can put in whatever I want here. And so I've set up a new network ID, 172.17.12.0 WAC24. I can, just by checking that, it'll start giving me DHCP server. If I want to support IPv6 and do advertisements, I can do it there. I'm not going to mess with that stuff because we're really concentrating on just getting Active Directory running. We have port forwarding. If you want to do port forward into your little NAT, you can do it if you want, but really not important. I'm going to cancel this because I do not want another one. Okay. I'm hoping what I just said makes sense to you. You're probably going to want to use a NATed network just because when we set up virtual machines, we generally like them to be on the internet, right? That's especially true for setting up a Windows server. Microsoft really counts on you having that ability. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to show you guys real quick. But I like to set up a NAT network with its own unique network ID, and that's how you do it. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is actually getting the thing started. So you head over to Microsoft and just do a Google search on download Windows Server and hit enter, and it'll take you to the Microsoft library. They give out free 180-day server, Windows 10, all kinds of stuff. And download the ISOs, the ISOs. And then you can start setting, once the ISO is set up, the only trick now is how do you plug the ISO into the virtual machine you just made? So let me show you how to do that. So to plug that in, I'm going to go to something that's turned off just because it's easier. And I'm going to go to Settings. And I'm going over to Storage. You guys see that? All right. So all I need to do is I click on, do you see the little CD icon there? So I'm going to click on that. And the moment I do that, you'll notice a little icon appears over here. Here I can choose what ISO I want to use. So I can just scroll through and find wherever I downloaded my ISO, here's where I'll grab it. And I've now installed a bootable Windows installation CD. Get the idea? I don't know why they put that little icon. My biggest complaint about VirtualBox is they put that little icon way over in the upper right-hand corner, and it is not intuitive. And people are like, I can't do this. And it can be a little frustrating. Yeah, but if that's the worst thing I can come up with VirtualBox, that's it. All right. So you go ahead and start the installation. There's nothing particularly earth-shattering about the installation until you get to the settings. And that's where we stopped yesterday. And I'm going to run, I want to get most of the settings set up. It's going to start a big, long load. We're going to do some more questions, hopefully come back, and let's see if we get this most of the way done before we move forward. Now, a couple of things you need to think about. When you're setting up a Windows server, it's not going to use DHCP. You have to give it a legitimate IP address, okay? So just pick one. I'm going to pick 10.0.2.10. In fact, I'm going to write that down to make sure I do that. Servers don't use DHCP. Okay, there's ways you can make it do it. I don't want to do that. So we're going to set up the Windows server and just get it up and running. But once it's up and running, then we've got to do some things. For example, we have to have it become an Active Directory server. It isn't by default. It's just Windows Server. I can just turn it into a file server, make it a member of somebody else's Active Directory. Get the idea? So I'm going to have to promote the server, that's the term we use, as an Active Directory machine. I'm going to get that up and promoted, and then, and here's the other big one, Active Directory servers have to be DNS servers. So we are going to be setting up Active Directory, and we're going to be setting up DNS, because if you have an Active Directory server, it is a DNS server. There's no exception to that. So static IP address, do a promote. In fact, you'll hear the term DC promo. It's an old command you used to type. I don't even know if it still works. To take a regular Windows server and promote it to an Active Directory server, and then we're going to configure DNS. Okay, let's do it. Yeah, I'm yawning, I'm sorry. Okay, so we've gone through the initial installation. And what I want to do now is let's just get the process going. So first of all, we have to give it a local administrator account. So let's go ahead and make a local administrator account. And I'm going to type in a real simple password. Pretty sure it's not going to like this. Yep, wasn't complex enough. So I've got a default complex password I'm going to throw in. Somebody told me Carrie Holzman's in. Hey, Carrie. Welcome to like the most boring part of the entire presentation. Dude, why aren't you ever here when the cats show up? I'm kidding. All right, so I've typed in a password. So I've got my local administrator set up, and it's like, hey, I'm all ready to go. I am so not ready to go. It's not even funny. All right. I'm off to the side a little bit, guys, because as things get installed, we're going to be changing the resolution, so I'm just going to kind of leave it right here. We'll let this install for a little bit. Hey, Scott Jernigan, would you go get me Gatorade? All right. So when you first look at this, let me shape this up so you guys can see a little bit better. It's in 4:3 right now. Let me tighten this up so you guys can see it. Okay. So if you take a look at this, it's actually kind of interesting. You look at this right now, you go, Mike, this is just Windows. Oh, my friend, it is not just Windows. Well, first of all, it found my network, the little 10.0.2 network, so I'm just going to say yes to that. But we're going to have to make some changes like right away. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go into my network settings. And let's just go ahead and change. I just always want to use that, and it never works. You guys got to forgive me. I am still so old school that I'm always looking at control panel in Windows instead of services. And this is a classic example of I don't, you know, every version of Windows 10, every version of Windows Server, stuff that used to be in control panel is now under services and such and such. We'll survive. All right, let's get back in here. All right, so what I've done is I've just gone to my network connections. There's my card. I'm going to hit properties. I'm going to hit harder. And remember, at this point, we're just messing with IPv4, so I don't even care about anything else. So number one, I'm going to type in an IP address. And because we chose 10.0.2, I know that's legit. And I'm going to make this guy 10, because why not? And it's going to be a WAC 24. Unfortunately, Windows sees that 10 and just immediately assumes that we're a WAC 8. So I've made a WAC 24 default gateway. At this point, I'm just going to lie, say 10.0.2.1, although I do believe that'll work. Now, here's the interesting part, guys. He's a DNS server. So we're going to set the DNS server up as 127.0.0.1. I want you to stare at that for a minute, please. So we've got a static IP address. We're WAC 24. The default gateway, and the reason I knew the default gateway is because I've just worked with VirtualBox enough, and that is the legit default gateway it's going to path out to. And what I've done in this particular case is I've made him his own DNS server. Now you're like, wait a minute, wait, Mike. How can a machine be its own DNS server? Because remember what I said is we're going to be installing DNS server right on this box. And once we get into the DNS server, we can do some configuration that will make all this work really, really, really pretty. Active Directory needs DNS, folks. Got to happen. All right, back to it. All right, here we go. Hit OK. Always expect that to reboot. And it's trying to help me out here. We're going to just close this for a minute. All right, and let's just close this. Okay, so what you're looking at here, folks, this is the default server dashboard. The dashboard is probably your go-to place for most of the configuration stuff that you're going to have to be dealing with on a Windows server, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to add a role. And it's got a bunch of warnings, you know, blah, blah, blah. Do you have the administrator account? Is your network settings, such as IP address, are configured? Yes, they are. Do I have all the updates in there? I'm just going to, probably wouldn't hurt to do updates. All right, so am I doing a role-based or feature-based installation right here, or is it a remote desktop? We're going to be doing it right here. All right, and select a server. I've only got one. And now we get to pick what we want to install. Now if you take, can I make this even bigger? Let's see if I can make this even bigger for you guys. Come on. Scott Jernigan, one of these days we're going to fire OBS Studio. There we go. All right. So now you guys can actually start to look in here and see some of the stuff we can add in. We can install a DNS server, a DHCP server. We can install, what we're interested in is called Active Directory Domain Services. Now, the good part here, you can install a web server, all kinds of stuff. The nice part is here, guys, if you mess up, it's not that big of a deal. You just come back in, back to the dashboard, and then you unhook roles that you want to unhook. So I want to do Active Directory Domain Services. And it says, hey, man, if you want to do this, I need to install a lot of these other things too. And you're like, well, go right ahead. Right. And I'm going to install DNS server. There'll be another time we can do that, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it now. And it doesn't like something right now. What does it not like? No static addresses were found on this computer. I'm going to just go ahead and hit continue anyway. I'm pretty sure it'll find them. And now it's like, hey man, you want to do Azure? I don't want to do Azure. No thanks. So it kind of bugged me that even though we all watched me very carefully type in a static IP address, it doesn't see it. So in these types of situations, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and reboot. But normally all I'd be doing at this point is I just say, hey, start, go. If I make sure that the IP configuration is right before I do the promotion to the Active Directory and the DNS, it will automatically configure just about everything you need for you. If the IP address isn't right, then I'm going to run into, well, it's not trouble, but I'm going to have to go in and make some changes manually that I'd rather avoid. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead, do a reboot, and once that reboot is kicked in, that's going to take a while, and let's go ahead and talk about some more questions that might come in. So all I'm doing at this point is forcing a reboot before I get her going. And it's up and going. Okay. Let's take a look at questions from the studio audience. Gary Holzman, hey man, I've been trying to get a hold of you, dude. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, I'm just digging for questions, kids. I'm a little worried because this boot might take a while, even though it's under a virtual machine. It's cranking away. All right. Okay. You guys are more interested in my cat. Okay, I think we're back in line here. Okay, I'm at 3:02 p.m. Oh man, it's 30 minutes ago, 25 minutes ago. From No Bullies, are the CompTIA Network Plus or A Plus open book? No. If not, how do they police it online? Real damn carefully. I've only heard of 2 situations where people, without like power going out or something, where they suddenly, their test ended. And in one of those cases, it was a proctor who was seeing something they didn't like. So, yeah, you don't, when you're taking the test, if you're taking it online using the OnView product, you have to have a camera. They're watching you. If you actually go to a testing center, they have cameras. Somebody sits there and watches, make sure you're not cheating. Not a noob question. No bullies. No bad questions here, brother. In your Network Plus book, it mentions a story about you installing a toilet and remind me to tell you, oh, I tell that story all the time. It wasn't really installing a toilet. I was installing a equipment rack, a 19-inch equipment rack, 64U equipment rack in what used to be a toilet in the middle of a refinery. And one of the things that toilets need is water. And I rather foolishly I was moving a sink, and I missed one of the water lines. Because you don't want water with computers, you want water with a toilet, and it's out there in an operator shack, so we had to move stuff around. Bottom line is I missed one of the water lines. We kicked the water over, and I poured hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water on top of hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of computer equipment. Yeah, it was second most expensive thing I ever did in terms of destroying equipment. Didn't fire me. Looking for questions. So I'm assuming most of you guys have followed the bouncing mic here, and you're also going through the same installation process. I'm hoping. Hey, the nice part, look, it's VMware. It's VirtualBox. It's a virtual machine. You screw up, just delete the virtual machine and try again. Guys, I think the first time I installed Windows Active Directory in a virtual machine, it took me about 5 tries. before I got it. So, Maven Feliciano. Hi, Mike. Quick question. Since you brought up the topic of virtualization, I'm curious about using, oh, this is from 311. I'm curious about using an external SSD. Any performance issues and other things to be mindful of we should watch? No. You want to use a virtual, you want to set up a virtual machine and then have just that virtual machine tie into a SSD? I don't know if VirtualBox can do that. I know VMware can. I'll bet VirtualBox can do it. I've never tried. Or are you talking about you have a host system and you've got a external SSD on there and you just want to, what, throw all your virtual machines on there? Nothing wrong with that. Go for it, man. Choco Taco named his virtual NAT network Yeet. Nice. There's Dave Rush. 315. Dave, the only other thing I'd tell him is I really think he has to install the extension pack, the VirtualBox extension pack. Most of the cool USB stuff, in my experience, required the extension pack to be installed, which is free and easy, so go for it. I do have a complex password. You guys are hilarious. No, Brendan S., that is not my complicated password. Ooh, Nick Sparky. Are we on the standard data center installation? You don't want to do the data center. You want to do the standard with the desktop experience. Most people who install Windows Server have no interest in having a desktop because they're always accessing the machine remotely, which in all honesty, you probably will too eventually. So a lot of people will install Windows Server without the desktop because they don't need it, because they're going to just remote into it, and that'll be fine. So standard with the desktop experience. Rich Reed, thank you. It's good to know loopback address entered in the DNS, so I know that the running system can be its own. There you go. Come on, questions. Come on, guys. Kevin Lopez, can you use an NAS to play video games off of? Well, so you're going to network access. You're going to have a network share to pull your stuff in. I've done that with my Steam account. I've certainly installed some of my games on a network share. Ran fine. There was a special setting I had to do in some of the games. I'm a little rusty. I'm pretty sure you can get away with it. But you got to keep in mind, I rarely install games anymore. For me, it's Steam, right? So I've got like 150 games in Steam, and I just have to set the default games directory to, F:\/ whatever. So I would think you would have no problem. It could potentially slow the system down, slow the game down. So Discord enrollment has doubled. Dave Rush at 325. Of course, what does that mean? We're gone from 2 to 4? Yeah, my installation is still going really slow, guys. I can almost guarantee you that the installation isn't going to finish today, which will actually be good, because what I'd like to do is we'll go ahead and pick up and see what the post-installation tasks are, figure out whatever. DNS is always a pain in the rear end to get right for Windows Server, at least for me. And so we'll keep going. So anyway, we're just going to keep on going questions, because there's no way that this installation is going to end in 25 minutes. Oh, Patricia, physically installing. The hardest part about installing a toilet is the sewer line. Don't tell anybody, but I'm handy. Kyle Fogarty, thank you, sir. Appreciate the kind words. Tolowit, do you prefer cloud storage or an NAS these days for sharing inner office? We do a little bit of both. So we're running Office 365, so we have a lot of documents that are in the cloud. We lean heavily on Dropbox. We lean, what's Microsoft's cloud version? I don't even remember. Use that. But we also have, like, for our big video files, when we're producing videos, those are monsters, and you would never want those on the cloud. We don't live in a part of Houston that has, whoops, sorry, Jack. We don't live in a part of Houston that has really great internet. We're kind of out in the boonies, so we would never even risk that. So, you know, we have a 10 gigabit backbone in the office. So when people are moving video files and storing those, then we're definitely doing, it's not really even, I guess it's NAS in the most soft type of the word. My 2 cents. Hey, Mike, would joining the military help me get a job in IT? Yes, it sure would. It's tricky. I would definitely, if you really want to get in IT, I'd go Air Force. I love all the branches of the U.S. I'm assuming you're USA. I would go Air Force and then possibly Navy, just because I know what their IT infrastructures look like. And I think they do a good job. They have a number of MOSs that would actually tie into that. And just about everything on a ship or on an airplane these days is a PC anyway, honestly. And, you know, it's a great way to go. It's hard to get in the U.S. military these days. You need good grades, got to keep your nose clean, but good luck to you if that's the way you want to go. I love the military. I've always been a big fan. I've never been in the military myself, but man, my 2 cents, if you want to talk about anything that flies, rolls, or floats on the water, I can talk about it. Brendan S., I just joined Zones 5. Chewbacca Gooey, hey Chewbacca, can you go over an overview of how to attach to a SAN? Sure, that's an interesting question. Typically, you're going to attach to a SAN through your network card. You'll either have a dedicated network card. It can be Ethernet, but more often than not, you'll see things with names like Fiber Channel and such. And on most of these SAN solutions, at least the ones I've seen, you don't have any hard drives in the computer, in your local computer. You lean completely on the SAN. So when you when you fire up your computer in the morning, it does a PXE boot, and you boot off of, you have some standard image that's sitting on the SAN, which is your boot, okay? And then you'll boot that in. Usually have roaming profiles. Boy, there's a lot of variance here. But you connect to a SAN by firing up your computer. That's all you do. I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but I've used Dell SANs now for almost 20 years in one form or another, and that's pretty much the way they do it. Certainly in the Department of Defense and Department of Justice folks I've worked with, because I can't afford a SAN in my house. Windows installation check. How are we doing? It's still cranking. If anybody else's Windows Server installation finishes before class runs out, let me know. Tolowit, you're on a roll. The hardest part of installing a toilet is the testing phase afterwards. You're here all week. Try the veal. Travel and Tech. Without IT certification, can we get the good job? No, but you can get a job. Certification is never going to get you a job. Not really. Certification gets your resume to the top of a stack. Certification gets you through the first couple lines of filtering. because they're trying to find people with a certain skill set. But anybody who ever walks into an interview and goes, I'm A+ certified, is going to get laughed at, okay? When we talk about our certifications, we talk about it quietly and casually. You know, it's like, yeah, I picked a couple of certs up. Yeah, A+, yeah. See where I'm coming from? The big mistake people make, don't do this. Well, I'm going to get X, 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 and X certification, and then I'm going to get a job. No, sir. Go get a job today. I don't care if you're flipping burgers at McDonald's. I've worked fast food. I've worn the paper hat. I've worn the pin with my name on it. It's fine. You get out there and work. Certification study is something you do on nights and weekends to help you move forward in your career. Yeah, okay, so your first couple of jobs are going to be pretty stinky. I've got a couple of videos on here that talk about how to get entry-level IT jobs and what people look for. But go work. Do not sit on your rear end and say, I've got to get certifications to work. It doesn't work that way. Where's my soapbox? Rich Reed, 3:37 p.m. What are your thoughts on quantum computing? I don't know anything about it yet. IBM had, I don't know if it's still there, but IBM, you could actually access, they had all quantum computers are pretty small right now. They had one you could access and do some pretty basic stuff with. It was kind of cool. Quantum computing, the big thing quantum computing is going to do is that quantum computing lives on the concept of probability. I mean, that's what it's all about. And in a more mature format, quantum computing could make some real challenges, particularly to like RSA style encryption, you know, the good old public key, private key kind of stuff. We don't know that yet. It's all talk at this point. I haven't looked into quantum computing in a year. So if something new's happened in a year and it's kind of technology where it might, I'm not aware of it. I think 10 or 15 years from now it might be cool. Good Lord, Tolowit. In the Army, we used PCs for making Harvard graphics presentations. Guys, Harvard graphics is like before PowerPoint. Don't worry about it. Tolowit, move on. Connor Wellman, looking to get hands-on experience for the 1001, was thinking of buying a cheap desktop and upgrading it. Is this a good idea? Not really. Most of the 1001 hardware stuff is more part recognition than anything else. The kind of computers that you could use to learn this stuff are usually free computers. It's not a huge amount of change over the last 6 or 7 years in terms of hardware, other than getting faster and more colors and things like that. But I mean, I'd buy something like for maybe $100 or something like that, but I wouldn't go any more than that. Here in the States, I'm a big believer in Craigslist for stuff like that. As long as you don't mind going up to strangers and firing up computers with them there. I would go something like that, and be cheap. You know, don't go spending much money at all. Looking OneDrive, that was it. Charlie Steffens, am I pronouncing that right, Charlie? Hi, Mike. I'm 23 and just starting my IT journey with your CompTIA Plus course. Thanks for the help. Keep showing up on Monday and Wednesdays and pass the damn exam, Charlie. All right. Andre, you're restarting. Patricia, yours is done? I'm still running, and I'm in a VM. I should be like 1,000,000 times faster than you guys. So I don't know. Let's not even try. We've only got about 15 minutes left. We will pick up on Monday right where we've left off, and we're going to be actually configuring the Active Directory, and then we're going to be setting up the DNS, and it's pretty much going to be ready to run from there. So thank you guys for letting me know that yours is finished. Not sure why mine's taking so long. So I'm just looking at my installation, making sure I didn't miss anything. Dave Rush, simple to install iSCSI SAN on a Raspberry Pi. Patricia Grace, but I didn't do the network properties inputs changes. Patricia, are you saying you didn't change the IP addresses like I did? All right, we'll take care of that too. Chris Steffens, is there a difference between RDP and VDI? Yes. I don't remember what the, you're going to make me look. Oh, that's the Citrix one, VDI. Oh, man, you had me there for a minute. The only time I've used VDI was on Citrix boxes. So I'm not aware of another place to use it. So the right answer is, I'll start with this. I don't know. I've used RDP on all kinds of Windows stuff. And whenever I've had to do with something with Citrix, I always use the VDI. And I don't know what the difference are. I'm doing a quick search, like checking different port numbers, obviously a different protocol. Horizon Client. VDI can use 3389, which is RDP port number. You notice the first thing I'm checking here, because I'm not super familiar with VDI, first thing I'm going to look at is port numbers, because those things rarely overlap. It uses a lot of other port numbers too. Can't give you an instant answer on that. I'm going to put that right up there with daisy chaining RAM. I don't want to have too many questions for Monday, because I want to make sure that we're finished with our servers. Okay. Oh, so many questions. Link to those. Oh, yeah, Scott Jordan's got you covered there, Connor. 342, Kevin Lopez. Best Buy is also competing with Amazon Prime Day. Yep. I personally don't like Amazon Prime Day at all. Really, really disappointed with some of the products last few years. Brendan S., 3:44 p.m. Ooh, I'm getting caught up. Mike, so a friend of mine who's a network administrator asked me today if I would like to volunteer at their nonprofit to gain experience. I don't like working for free, Brendan, but if you have the time and you can afford to do that, I mean, that is a place where people get good experience. So, and if it's a legitimate nonprofit, you know what I mean? Especially if you put, I don't want to get political here on what your nonprofits are, but I work with Electronic Freedom Foundation, EFF, Innocence Project. Don't worry, I have a lot of right-wing ones too. But I, as a person who was hiring folks, if I were to see legitimate, real volunteer work where you're not just screwing in light bulbs and making coffee, I would treat that like legitimate work experience. I wouldn't separate them in my mind. If you can afford it, go for it. But also keep in mind, Brendan, you're still looking for a full-time job, right? Okay. Oh, good, Charlie. I'm so terrible at names. If everybody just wrote their social security number on their foreheads, my life would be a lot easier. Now I'm entering with a bias by knowing what workers in the company are good or bad. Be careful, Brendan. I've learned more from idiots than from geniuses so many times. Thomas Robinson bought my book. Thank you, Thomas. I really do appreciate it. My 2 cents. Thanks. How much do you really need to know for an entry-level help desk job? My 2 cents. It's an entry-level job, okay? So the big thing with entry-level jobs is that they know what entry-level means, okay? It means little to no job experience. But when you see these entry-level jobs, they're going to say, we need a college degree, 3 years of work experience, 17 certifications. Look, they're lying, okay? They're just trying to filter out the people who don't have the guts to apply. And if you think you can give a good tech interview, then you go for it. The thing is you see a help desk job, well, what are they looking for? Personable voice? That's a real thing. The ability to calmly work through knowledgeware. Because most of the time, you got to understand, the questions you're asking are being put in front of you, okay? It's not like you're having to do anything very creative for most help desk slots. So honestly, dependability, a good speaking voice, not being whiny. No offense to folks out there today, but it seems like people whine all the time. It's like, so I want to work for you. Okay, great. Then they start with the buts. But I can't do this, and but, I can't work Saturdays, and but, and it's like, man, every time I just start to hear those buts, I was like, You guys would be shocked how much good attitude, enthusiasm, eye contact, and dependability. You can be a genius at technical stuff, but what kills me is I can't find anybody who is a young person, because that's where I tend to hire from, who has those 4 attitudes. Ian, our new guy, is great. And I can see why Scott Jernigan grabbed him in a heartbeat. But those are the things you got to go for, guys. Dependability. I have a car and I can get there. I'm only 2 bus stops away from you. That kind of stuff is so big. Big, big, big. Don't panic about that kind of stuff. Entry level means entry level. Yeah, I'm running way too much stuff at once right now. And I've got 32 gigs of RAM in here. But between the presentation software, PowerPoint, I've got 4 virtual machines running. I still have Wireshark running. Maybe we could turn that off. So actually, mine has now finished also, guys, but we've only got about 5 minutes left. So I'm going to pick up on Monday. Mark Wheeler, are we promoting the server to a domain controller? We are. That's the main thing. We're going to set up an Active Directory domain controller, and we're going to make sure the DNS is configured properly. It's actually kind of fun. You'll end up learning a lot about Microsoft DNS the first time you set up an Active Directory domain controller. But yes, you are. And Mark, if you're getting gutsy and you're going to jump ahead, just make sure that you're going to start a new forest. Your domain is going to start a new forest. And the name of your domain is going to be, Wellman, what is it? Sorry, Wheeler. So call it like wheeler.local. That is a fully qualified domain name, guys. Dr. Quinn, if you could only be sending me a bottle of wine right now. Can you give us an example of the right way to answer the interview question? The question. The number one question you need to have answered is you need to make them answer your questions. I like to see people who come in an interview, they know what my company is, they know what kind of mousetrap my company makes, they've looked us up in the news. If we're publicly traded, they have a feel for the stock price. You know where the locations are. You know who the CEO is. And what you start talking about in your interview is you're asking questions. It's like, So if we open up a new depot, would I have an opportunity to, maybe move forward and move up in that world? Or, what are the 7 types of software that you guys are using right now to do job X? Or most people who've worked here for 3 years, where are they now? Do you see what I'm saying? The best interviews are when the interviewee is asking me questions, because that's showing me, remember, that's showing me enthusiasm, that's showing me dedication. See where I'm coming from? I don't, where do you see yourselves from 5 years from now? In 5 years, I see myself having your job. You know what I mean? To me, those are sloppy, useless questions. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of websites out right now that are more human resource based that really talk about this stuff in a good way. But do some homework. Know the company. Look, you're going to send out between 100 to 200 resumes, at least. And out of that 100, 200 resumes, you're going to get maybe 5, maybe 10 interviews. And from that, you're going to get 1 job, okay? So, you only have to do research on 5 or some odd different companies. And it's not that hard. Comb your hair. I'm not kidding. It just blows me away how people come in rather sloppily dressed. Look, suit and tie is over. I know that, but it's too bad too. But those are the things. You think that I'm going to give you a list of questions and I'm going to give you some home run answer to. That's not how it works. That's a naive way to look at it. Instead, know the company, come in with a good attitude, good eye contact, firm handshake, knowledge of the company, and the big one, I'd say more than anything else, is make sure you know how to say, I don't know. When I technically interview people, I will pound on them until I get them to the point where they don't know the right answer. And if they try to technobabble me, probably not going to get the job. Let me rephrase that. They definitely won't get the job. And, and so just be comfortable and say, I don't know. But follow the I don't know with, but I can find out. It's I don't know, the 3 words every technician loves to hear. Kevin Lopez, I have not tried Twister OS. I do not know it. Sorry, brother. You guys. Nick Sparky, I just had a virtual job expo through my school. Talked to a cybersecurity engineer. Even though I don't have an engineering degree, I was able to communicate with him thanks to your help. Ah, cool. Thanks, Nick. So just because we're saying, even though I don't have an engineering degree, Nick, I tell everybody, I'm not throwing this at you, dude. You just brought it up. If you can get a 4-year degree, you need to do it, okay? You can have a good career in the IT world without a degree. I don't have one. I was making too much money. Life's easier these days if you have a degree. An engineering degree would be incredible. Computer science degree, even though, unless you're going to be a programmer, you're not going to use your CS degree, but it's respected. So if you can get a degree, do it. If you can't get a 4-year degree, go for a 2-year degree. If you can't get a 2-year degree, then you probably ought to consider self-study. Everybody can get work. Kevin Lopez, 3:54 p.m. Have you heard of malware as a service? That stuff's actually kind of been around for a while. I mean, the Russians were selling, I shouldn't pick on the Russians, it wasn't just them, and still are. They'll sell you a botnet that you can point at whoever you want, and wildly illegal, incredibly illegal, like federal prison illegal. All right, so I know Elbow missed it, but the rest of you guys all know how to make 500 bucks now? Sorry, Elbow, you missed that. Yeah, it's good information. All right. It really is a grind. It's a great grind. I love technology. I haven't worked a day in my life in the last 30 years. I'm not kidding. This stuff's a hoot. There's always new things to play with and new people to talk to, and just getting on Google and checking out what's happening in technology, new iPhone 12s, and I love this stuff. I have a great passion for technology. I like it. Nick Sparky, I might just go to a headhunter agency. Nick, there's nothing wrong with going to a headhunter. You don't pay them, okay? Let the employers pay them. Do not go to a headhunter if you have to pay them, okay? That's a ripoff. Kevin Lopez, but what if I don't have hair to comb? I don't know what you're talking about, Kevin. Oh, it's 4 o'clock. Goodness sakes, guys. Goodness sakes. All right. Well, folks, my system is done too. So when we get back on Monday, we are going to go ahead and finish up Active Directory. In fact, what we're going to do on Monday is once we get everything up and running, and I'm going to warn you right now, some of you guys, it's just going to fail. And you're going to erase the virtual machine and start over, okay? It's usually not worth the hassle of trying to redo it. But that's okay, all right? And so we're going to go through there. We're going to get the Active Directory server up. We're going to take another Windows 10 virtual machine. We're going to have it join the domain. So we have just a two-domain system. We're going to have a server and one client. And then with that, we're going to start having some fun. And we will come back to PowerShell. I haven't forgot about it. And we're going to start pulling, we're going to go onto the Microsoft library, and we're going to start grabbing arbitrary PowerShell scripts, tweaking them for what our needs are, and then making them do whatever we need to do. So does that sound like a plan? All right, guys, it is late. Remember, it's 50% off the A+, Net+, and Security Plus practice questions and simulations. Just go to www.total7.com, and you too can take advantage of these ridiculously low prices for the best practice questions that are out there today. So until then, any more big fires? Nope. Yep, Dave, what are we doing on Friday, Dave? Intrusion IPS with failed to ban. Heck, I might sit in on that one, Dave, if you don't mind. Having a home IPS. Now that I've got my pie hole working, it's been a lot of fun. All right, so guys, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Let's go ahead and call it a day. I will see you guys on Monday. Be sure to show up on Friday for Dave Rush. And until next Monday, this is your little Uncle Mikey saying good night. Good night.